as the annual meeting of the Inter-American Development Bank is about to take place, I'm joining in London with Marcelo Cabral, the Managing Director of Bradesco Europe. Marcelo, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Brazil, which is the home market of Bradesco, one of the leading banks in the country. Brazil is definitely not a country for the faint-hearted, is it? So just as we started the year with a positive outlook for the economy coming out of a very deep recession, we've now been hit by a scandal, and Brazilian authorities are now investigating into allegations that up to 40 food producers may have bribed the government for the sale and export of soiled meat, which is obviously pushed down prices and stocks and bonds of those food producers. But Brazil being in Brazil, we were just chatting earlier before recording, you've noticed a clear indication of bond buyers bottom fishing for the for these names.
Yes, we saw in our trading desk, both in London and in New York, a lot of interest in those names, the names of the companies that were affected by the recent news. And the sense that we have is that investors are taking the initial reaction, which was very negative, very strong, with a little bit of grain of salt. And obviously there's liquidity on the sidelines waiting for an entry point. We have seen a very meaningful repricing of Brazilian assets and very strong rallies both in equities and fixed income in the last 6 months. So we clearly saw some institutional investors from Asia, from Europe, from the US, trying to pick up some bonds, especially on the bonds, on the fixed income side.
Especially on the fixed income side.
Yes.
So they are probably anticipating that this may not be as severe as potentially the rest of the world is fearing.
Absolutely. There was a sort of an indiscriminate reaction in the market to the news. And we think that as we learn more over the course of the next few days, perhaps the market will find a bottom and prices will respond a little bit more positively.
Okay, so let's stay on the debt capital markets. What do you think will drive growth at a moment of great uncertainty, but also bearing in mind that Brazil is very much an idiosyncratic space, and so really anything can happen, and often there is not necessarily a direct correlation between the economic data and how investors look at those issuances.
Yeah, we think, our view is that we are in a process of accelerating growth in Brazil. We are currently growing, GDP growth is currently at about 0.5%, 50 basis points per year pace, run rate. And we think it will accelerate very meaningfully over the course of the year to perhaps a run rate of 3% towards the end of the year. And the reason for that is our expectation of very strong cuts in the Selic rate, in interest rates in Brazil. Last October, we started a cycle of monetary easing in Brazil. Rates have gone down 200 bips since October. And we expect between now and the end of the year at least another 3%, 325 bips in additional cuts. So over the course of the easing cycle, we see very meaningful reduction in interest rates in Brazil. We think real rates in Brazil will probably be cut by half over the course of the cycle. And that will create, I think, a very positive response in GDP. So we're not expecting a neck-breaking growth in 2017, but we think that there's ample room for surprises in the market. We also have some very seasonal factors for Brazil, one-off drivers for growth. We had a recovery of commodity prices around the world, which is positive for Brazil. We're having a very strong harvest this year, 15–18% growth in the harvest in this year, so that's positive. And inventory levels were very low in the economy last year, so we're seeing some inventory build up, which will also be positive drivers for the economy.
Something else I wanted to ask is about investments in infrastructure. You're based in London. You look after investors from all over the world looking to place their capitals with Brazil. And I think that infrastructure is becoming and growing as an interesting destination for that capital.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had the negative impact of the Lava Jato investigations and some of the companies that were holding infrastructure assets in Brazil were forced to sell. That created attractive opportunities. Some opportunistic investors started to follow that. And what we're seeing now is very strong FDI in Brazil. We think this year FDI should be around $75–80 billion. We had a very strong beginning of the year. And infrastructure assets are attracting investors from all over the world. The new administration in Brazil is very interested in these privatization programs and concession programs. So we're seeing interesting activities in airports, toll roads, ports, and perhaps this year we're going to see in oil and gas also some assets being privatized. There's a very high-profile transaction which is being discussed right now, which is Petrobras selling its gas stations, BR Distribuidora, and we're seeing that already investors are following that with a lot of attention.
Very good. Well, thank you, Marcelo, for your comments.
Thank you.